first of all, you guys introduce yourselves, but I'm going to just say a couple of words. We've talked a lot about many things today, but we haven't talked a whole lot about workplace models. The conversation always comes up about hybrid work, back to work, workplace itself, what are the models for that? And we'll have a much more discussion about that tomorrow, but the simple topic is the workplace model. What is it? What should it be? What are you doing now? But let's start with intros, please, first.
Yeah, so I'm Vilius with Danske Bank, so that's the Nordic player in the Scandinavian market. And in Lithuania, it's the largest global business service center and IT center with 4,000 plus employees. Started 10 years ago with 30 people. Now I just mentioned what's the size. And yeah, so flexible work, I believe, for everyone is the topic anyone can discuss. So let's maybe try to learn from each other what are the tips and tricks here on the subject.
Okay, Peter?
I wish we could say we've met each other before, but we haven't. We just meet each other for the first time. You already win with the size, by the way. Peter Mitchell, I've been working 25 years in business services, so relatively boring. I've got the Irish accent, not the Spanish one. Same as Liam Nielsen. So I think that there is a reason why your revenue has gone up over the years, because he'll go around beating people up if you don't contribute to UNICEF. So born and raised in Ireland, I've been, like I said, working a long time in the industry. Currently with ABB, I led the center in Krakow for close to 5 years with 2,000 plus people. Again, grew from almost nothing into a large-scale operation with multi-different functions in there as well. I'm now a transformational leader in the industry, and looking forward to this discussion. Very hard segue to get from what was being discussed to hybrid work model, but it's one that's very close to my heart, and definitely one that I hope that we can have a good conversation and not beat each other up. Yeah.
Well, let's start with the obvious questions. What is the policies that the Danske Bank has for work? What is back to work? Just tell us the standard policy today, and ABB next.
Yeah, I think starting with COVID period, it was already clear we will not get back to anything close to what it was. And for Danske Bank, I would say the goal was to be the first bank in the Nordics to announce flexible work as the way of working. Just comparing ourselves to other players in the banking sector, we saw that even during the COVID, they didn't have everyone working remotely. When in our case, we sent everyone during the weekend to work remotely, even though we were preparing for it for like a few weeks on the IT side. But yeah, so the guidelines and everything that came after was the communication was to all employees that we are going with flexible work, but we provide opportunity to work 1 to 2 days from home, but then there is a continuation of the sentence saying that it is up to each team to decide with their management how they arrange their work to continue to be productive and engaged. So, and this is where the interesting part starts, I would say. Yeah, I would leave it for probably discussion, but yeah, so officially it's 1 to 2 days work from home as a possibility, but the practice shows different probably.
Yes. ABB, official policy?
I mean, I have to take a little bit of a kind of, there's a bit of a backdrop story here, because, you know, I'm one of these leaders at the time. I was inseparable from the office. I was there all the time. I think I was not in the office for 4 or 5 days during the entire pandemic, and one of them was a dentist appointment, one was something else that was requiring me to be outside the office. So I took another extreme to this, and as the leader of the organization, I felt it was appropriate for me to be there to make people feel comfortable and know that the place is safe to come to, with all the different measures and everything you need to do. And of course, because I was on the extreme side, a lot of people labeled me as the guy who wanted everyone to come back to the office during the pandemic. And I was getting a lot of hate mail saying that it's unsafe and how could you do this to us? But the opposite, it was completely the opposite was true. We did a kind of a workshop around 2 years ago with masks on. And we brought in leaders from across the entire organization. So I'm a firm believer in let's make this decision together, and let's then discuss this together and come out with something that's meaningful and holds purpose and water. And we put a policy down on the table. So it wasn't a guideline. It wasn't like, as you know, come as you feel like it. It was a policy, and the policy was put together based on personas. So, and of course, the organization in ABB for Poland is white and blue collar. So we also had the business representatives there as well, because of course, you know, there's no choice when you run a factory. You have to ensure your people are coming in and there's safe distance between them. So you have to find a kind of a middle ground here. But for the office employees, we said persona being business critical, like all of the HR employees that are dealing with confidential documentation, they were coming in every single day of the week. In the banking sector, I'm sure you also have certain confidentialities and documents that cannot be just, you know, sent to somebody's home. So there are those kind of, you know, a small group, maybe 10 to 15%, where they are required to be there. And then there's another group which I was very passionate about, and these are new joiners. New joiners coming in during the whole pandemic situation, they haven't got a clue what's going on. They don't know. How can you onboard someone virtually, you know? Yes, there's lots of ways to do it, and here's your laptop, and here's your documentation, and good luck. But they don't feel comfortable to pick up the phone or to go on a Microsoft Teams call and have a chat with their, let's say, their team leader, because they don't know the team leader. So I think from a leadership perspective, and I've been quite outspoken about this, it's irresponsible as leaders to assume that people, you know, having that flexibility, go home, spend 5 days at home, and we'll see how you get on during your appraisal in the year. That's a no-go. So there was a probationary period of 3 to 6 months when it comes to growing and developing, and you had to come to the office for 3 to 4 days a week. So yes, it sounds strict, but it was to prevent people from having, let's say, not the right growth level and rate as you would have had in the past. And that somehow backfired, and I can come back to that in a few minutes.
So let me ask you this. We talk about locations a little bit, and venues, and cities, and countries. And let's look at Lithuania, not a big country compared to Poland, great thriving BSC sector. Yet you must have, like everywhere in the world, constraints on labor. Do you actively say, look, we can hire in Poland now, or we can hire in Timbuktu now? I mean, is your center hiring restricted to Lithuania?
No, it's not, but at the same time, when we announced that you can work from anywhere during COVID period, and we started marketing campaigns across Lithuania, at the seaside, everywhere else, it was already clear after a few months, so how in reality it will work, right? How we will ask these people to arrive to the office at least once per week, at least once per 2 weeks, and so on. And it was clear that that will be a challenge. So at that time we said, let's stop the marketing part. It was nice to advertise that way during summer, like you can work in the beach on Lithuanian seaside and still be you know, officially working from the capital. But that was already clear that that will not work. It's more currently kept for specific roles and skill sets where we lack talent and we really need to be flexible. And these are exceptions, I would say. But at the very beginning, it was clear that that's more or less for everyone, just a marketing campaign. Yeah.
By the way, I'd love to hear from other people in the audience, just as a conversation, questions, comments, suggestions. What are your experiences as well? So let's open it up to anyone that has a comment at all. So very much.
And just maybe on the comment side, so in the previous presentations we had from other companies, really was exciting to see the flexible work environment, all the perks in the offices and so on. But then when I saw the figure of 1.5 days per week in the office on average, that is concerning, especially in our side when we see our statistics are really good when we look at the Lithuanian market. So during the peak days, around 60 to 70% of desks are occupied. So we have 0.6 ratio introduced in our offices. And that looks really good. We say that we should not expect more than additional 10% to be present, because then we will have issues in the office, right? So with parking lots and then canteen services and so on for everyone. But then when we see why certain teams are not coming to the office that often, managers are saying, oh, engagement scores are so high, everything is so perfect. And we see that they don't even challenge their team members. For them, it's better to sleep longer, not travel, and so on. So, but then we say it's not about me, it's about my team, it's about my company, what value do we bring, how we learn from each other, how we innovate. So this is where we're trying to shift this kind of thinking of just being very happy with flexible work and mainly working remotely, and engagement scores are very high at the same time, but really to start thinking how that affects us mentally, physically. No one talks about it that much, right?
I believe you're talking about the honeymoon phase, the bubble, right?
Still continues, I would say.
Did you go to the beach? Did you work from the beach?
No.
Oh, okay, good. It's a difficult one. It's the hardest nut to crack because we're still living in it, right? We haven't come back to any level of normality, or what we would refer to. I mean, 1.5 is a scary number as well. But I think it's all about...
Why is it scary? Who cares? You just said it's a concern. You say it's scary.
Well, it's scary for me.
It's working. It's
yeah.
working. Isn't it working?
Is it? Where are the stats to show us it's working?
I don't know. Let's tell me the stats that it's not working.
Because nobody speaks about productivity and other aspects. Everyone talks about engagement, right? So I don't hear that. And then when you start talking about productivity, how do you measure that? Then becomes another challenge. Oh, it's a knowledge-based work, right? So you cannot measure it properly. So, you know, many things like innovation part, how do you know how much you lost without having people around you and brainstorming?
I'd love to hear from the crowd, anyone that's on the extreme, either extreme. And we haven't heard from you at all yet today, so let's start with you. But I'd love to hear from people that are doing absolutely fully in the office policy or absolutely don't care.
To be honest, I don't understand why you want to measure productivity. Back then, in the COVID period, I was in a fintech working with Bitpanda. There was 100% home working because we have not been allowed to go into the office. Actually, the opposite happened. The people got crazy and actually demanded to go into the office because we skipped everything there. And we had way more output from home because there was more time to work. So I don't really understand why you're measuring or why productivity is the key fact. And at the same time, there was the case beforehand, I think before the lunch, that if you leave the choice to the people how often they want to come into the office or not, they are even more in the office and not less. At least those are my points. So I really don't understand why measuring the productivity, and that's something I really don't understand at any point, is something we want to measure. Yep. It's the output and the goals.
Yeah, so the COVID period, I think there is another thing.
And that's
right?
measurement from a German Porsche, so that tells you something, right?
Yeah, yes, Austrian. Yeah. So probably there are other risks, right? With the COVID period, of course, the productivity was very high, but the problem was that people could not disconnect from work, right? Meaning you could see still people working at 8 p.m. Just because that was the way it was. So as I say, you know, with remote work, there are other risks that are coming, and you know, there are other jokes when we hear that, oh, if you want to show yourself very active working from home, just put your mouse into your rope, you know, and just keep walking at home. So, you know, so really depends how you measure.
I think if you just put the productivity to the side, I mean, I'm not big on that point either. We're in the people business, and you know, it depends on what type of services you're providing. If it's large-scale transactional, you do have a lot of, you know, in their 20s, just coming out of university, and I refer to it as wet behind the ears. They need someone to hold their hand and guide them. And if you're sitting down inside an office environment, I'll never forget it. 25 years ago, when I walked into my first job, I still remember the smell of the coffee machine and the color of the carpet, and the person who met me and brought me to my desk and said, "Don't move for the next 10 years." But you know, you don't forget these things, and that somehow, as human beings, we're losing that kind of closeness and connection. I think it's about the connection and the growth, and we don't. And I don't have statistics and KPIs, but I always have this kind of sixth sense that we are losing the growth potential of the new generation. And it's stunted. The growth is stunted. The learning curve, you know, it's not there. Or it's there, but it's gradual. It's almost like you're learning how to run and you go slightly uphill, a little bit of an incline, but it's not as kind of like this. It's not as steep as it used to be. I think we need to bring back that. And once they have, you know, learned how to do the job and picked up their ins and outs of their, let's say, professionalism, then there comes the trust, validation, and then trust, and then they can do whatever they feel comfortable with as long as they stay within the kind of, you know, the guidelines.
Stefan Bernard from Youngclear. Hi, Peter.
Hello.
I have a question for Peter and a question for my colleague from Danske. Peter, to try to have comparable basis, you mentioned blue collar in ABB and also white collar. So that's a bit comparable, the business we are running in financial services. But my question to you is, and I know your passion and we shared already, but for white collar, so people running in your finance department, internal audit, HR, like all of us, yeah? Have you seen in this type of profile, since last 18 months, 24 months, an increase of the number of offer rejected by candidate or increase of turnover in that type of population? That's my first question. And my question for my colleagues for Danske, 1.5 day in the office on average, yeah? How do you measure, if you do, how do you see sense of belonging increasing or decreasing? That's, I find very difficult to see the impact. Full flexibility on one side, but how do you maintain the culture, the mindset, the philosophy, and the sense of belonging in the company? Thank you. And Peter, if you don't want to provide figures, we share a beer after tonight.
I don't have anything in my back pocket here, but you know, you make a good point. Yes, of course, we had people that said, well, because you don't bring the flexibility, we would rather work for somebody else. Absolutely. I mean, is it a large number? No, definitely not. I mean, HR would have come a few times and said, maybe we want to be a little bit more flexible. And guess what? It's no longer a policy, it's a guideline. And we hand over a lot of responsibility to the team leads and the leadership to make their call and decision whatever suits them with regards to either HR or finance or procurement or IT. And I've always said it, you know, you refer to the beach, I refer to the IT organizations as anyway coming in on skateboards and surfboards under their arms before the pandemic. They already had the flexibility. They had their headphones and they had a laptop and they worked from wherever, right? So nothing's really changed in that space. But yes, it does deter people from coming. But I think you have to be quite strict and put a line there. Otherwise, it's free for all.
I actually
think
agree.
I didn't answer right. Sorry. So 1.5, it was not our case, right? I just used as a reference from the previous presentations. Here, ours are way higher, meaning it's close to 2-3 days per week. So it's different, and then compared on the unit level, it's very different. So probably, and then just a comment. There is no policy. We are still very flexible in terms of the guidelines, and that's the way we are continuing. It's probably what we do now. It's more related to specific teams. When we look at the statistics, when we see very low attendance, to go into those teams and understand better what's going on, why they're arranging their work that way, and maybe there is a clear reason why, especially when it's more high-skilled roles and so on, where it doesn't require that much of supervision and it's not a junior profiles and so on. So then it's perfectly normal to have certain arrangements. But yeah, 1.5, that was not our case. So that's why our concern is, so it's not just sense of belonging, learning curve, all the other aspects, also mental health, physical health, all the other things that come after.
I was just wanted to say that I'm sharing all of your concerns. I think we are more or less, especially with you, from the same age. But I think practice shows opposite. So I agree with you. So also in our case, productivity has increased. And also on the other hand, I think with the young ones, I rather experience the opposite. So I think for them to have a virtual relationship is completely normal. It could be shocking for us, I think, but for them, it's exactly the same as if they would come into the office. So I think we just need to find the best way and find the best balance with
I tell you, my 16-year-old daughter has never used her phone to actually call anybody, right? Yeah. So she has a non-voice relationship with most people.
So maybe we need to adjust, you know?
Okay, more comments? Yeah, here we go.
Thank you. So I just wanted to say that for me, working from home when pandemic started wasn't anything new because I was working on a global project. So actually, I was close to people working in London or in Paris rather than someone who was sitting next to me. So it wasn't a difference at all starting this work, and definitely productivity was better because I was spending a lot of time. But after 3 months of being so productive, it was very difficult. I started to feel like very tired, and I remember that our former global managing partner said something like that he puts like in his calendar like half an hour for thinking time, which was like a very good solution, just to stop ourselves and just to think what's going on, what I need to do, and so on and so on. So it's very difficult to like be in this rush or this fever of work of all the time when you don't like even I love that even a road to bathroom is like 3 minutes instead of 10 minutes. So every minute is very, very productive. But when I started to go back to the office, even though I was very happy with work from home, I discovered that this, as I said, brain hygiene is a very important part. But also, I think like one thing is being social and just talk to other people, which I think is very personal thing. So it depends on the people. Like someone will prefer that, someone will prefer working from home. But the other part is like, if you are sitting next to different teams, so for example, for me now, all my team is in London. So for me, it doesn't matter from the work perspective. But for example, I can hear that someone is saying, oh, I contacted this team about something else. So we are learning from each other, even though we are in different teams. So I think this is like being in the middle probably of every comment.
I think it might be a scary thought to know how many people have had actually meetings in the bathroom over the last couple of years.
Yeah, question to both of you. Do you see increasing attrition rate during the last 3 years, since the pandemic started?
No, I think now probably there are other reasons why attrition goes either way, right? So probably with the macroeconomic situation, with the war in Ukraine and so on, what we experience is reducing attrition, just because previously everyone was excited about fintech, about startups and so on. So this is where we were suffering a bit with top talents. And now people want more stability, and this is where we see another trend coming back. So it's not related to flexible work, but probably on flexible work, what we see in the market, if there is any company saying that you will be required to be present for a certain number of days in the office, that is a no-go for many people, meaning they look for flexibility. So I believe many companies have changed their tone, and some startups where they had very strict policies, they have removed them like in 2-3 months, that just because they got a huge pushback from their employees.
Fully agree with what he just said.
Yeah, just listening to this topic and all of the passion around it, I have to say, I think it's the wrong question. I think we get obsessed over the number of days a week we should be at the office right now, and I think it's completely the wrong question. The right question is, what culture do you want as a business? What type of organization do you want to be, and what do you want to stand for? Because I'll give you a few examples. We work with a manufacturing company. All of their people are in the office every single day. So the CEO says, well, why should my shared services be any different? Why should we have a different culture in our shared service center than we do in the rest of the organization? And then you have other companies that have fantastic measures, are very mature, are not recruiting that much, and they use it as a differentiator in the talent market. So because they can attract more talent, they don't have to pay extra, because if you make them come to the office, sometimes you have to pay a bit more. And so they use it as a mechanism. So actually, I think it's the wrong question. I
would not say in or out of the office is defined or labeled as a culture. I mean...
No, exactly. I think it's a result of. So you decide what culture you want, what you decide how your workplace strategy fits into that culture. And then you can work out whether it should be whatever it should be, or actually does it matter? Because if you're a developer, most of the developers I know hate going to the office.
But they always have.
And they always have, exactly. So you have to make those decisions. But I think I think it's the wrong question, and we should be focusing on culture a bit more in our organizations.
And I believe flexibility says it all, right? So even if employee plans their day to spend 2-3 hours during the day in the office and then doing the rest of their work at home, that is also fine. Some even come just for lunch to our canteen, not to cook it at home. So really very different approaches, and I think flexibility. It does.
The carrots, they work. You know, Sushi Tuesdays. I mean, all of a sudden, there's no parking spaces. There's people queuing left, right, and center. Get some for me, and then they disappear after lunch. Yeah, great, brilliant.
Just one question. Are you really struggling with the hybrid kind of way of working, or isn't it like more a different kind of question, like the change which is coming with it? Like, because we have to steer or manage our teams in a totally different way than we have before, because you don't see them, and actually that's the opposite, because you just chipping into the comments from before, you actually have to take care that your people are not working too much. And that's the way opposite of what we've been basically doing before COVID, because before COVID, I think no one from us actually told their teams to stop working. But with the hybrid working model and basically having your office 24/7 around you, it's really switched. Maybe is this more the kind of struggle?
You're absolutely right. It's again, you're referring to that simple but very complicated thing called leadership. And not all of the leaders are on the same page, right? So they kind of reflect a little bit onto their team, how they behave and how they operate. I'm not minding if you come in next week or the week after. I'll see you when I see you, as opposed to let's come in every Tuesday and Wednesday to see each other and collaborate and work together and try and figure out, how to solve some of the issues. So I think it's down to that, and that's the layer where if you don't trust them to do the right thing, then you will struggle. So I think that the training, maybe be it IG giving the training on this type of thing, how to lead a team in a hybrid environment. I mean, all these sort of things are extremely important. And never assume that it will go okay just by leaving it go. That's at least my opinion.
So I was going to cut the conversation off, but because it's Women's Day, have the last comment from our woman. Yes. Yeah, you seem to have raised your hand.
Hello. I agree with you regarding the newcomers. So I think newcomers at any profile, at any age, should have a different approach because of what you said before, because of engagement, because of knowledge transfer, because of context. But that's for a period of time. Depending on the role, it could be 3 months to 6 months maximum. But then after that integration, so after, and it can vary from person to person. Some people after 2 months are fully integrated. Some people after 6 months are not even close to integration. So it depends on how lucky you were on the recruiting. But what I was before, you said that after a while, it would be okay to leave it with the teams. So if the manager, and it was referring before, developers or software-related people, they prefer to be at home. There is no one in that area that would even assume as a better option to be fixed time, whether it's 1, 2, or 3. Just the fact of being fixed is messy for their heads. So I think it depends on the teams, whether they have to be or they prefer to be. But if you leave it to the management, and the management is close to them and understands that for them it's better to stay at home, then culture productivity doesn't go lower. Actually, in my team, when they were told that they have to be at the office 2 days a week, the engagement lowered 80%. And then when they said, okay, it's up to you, do whatever you want, then the engagement,
But I have a firm opinion and belief that people actually want to be told what to do. They actually want structure, and they want to be told, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to do it. Obviously in a professional, let's say, environment, right? People, they want that. They want that to a certain extent.
So Peter, I'm going to tell you what to do now. Last comments from your perspective, and last comments from your perspective, and we're going to finish.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes back to, make sure that you create an environment, a culture that allows people to grow and develop. I mean, we're in the people business. Let's stay in the people business. Giving people too much freedom and choice, I think, creates, you know, a lot of different kind of realities. Guidance is important. Train the leadership to fall a little bit into the same kind of way of doing things, with, of course, a little bit of the unique sauce. But yeah, I'm big favor of bringing people back, and yeah, let's see how that evolves over the next couple of hours, next couple of days and weeks and months. I mean, this is not yet in stone. It never will be. I think we're still almost just tipping the iceberg of what this really means to us as a business sector. So let's keep our finger on the pulse.
Vilius?
Yeah, probably speaking of leadership, that could end up my thoughts here. So in global business service centers, I believe in many of the larger ones, there is a large population of very young leadership, right? So these are former officers that just were recently promoted to supervisors and team leaders. And they are the ones that have probably the biggest challenge here with flexible work, how to manage themselves and how to manage their team and trust the team. So I think there will be a lot of learning for everyone at this stage. But when we talk about mature talents, about mature leaders, probably we don't see the same issues here. So, and the problem, what I see is that when everyone is basing, whether it's working or not, based on engagement scores, for me it's a challenge already, because then young leader, just to make their team happy, will not challenge the team, meaning they will just accept whatever the team wants to do, whatever they choose to do. That's the way it is. That's what we experience. And this is where we need to come and actually start talking to the entire team, to the leader of that team, and understand what's happening, how they arrange their work, and so on. So. But that's our reality. What I'm saying that. Yeah. But the average age of the entire organization, when it's close to 30, 32, and you have certain teams where the average age is 24, and the team leader is 27. So this is where I believe it's unexplored, meaning what the outcome could be afterwards with all the flexibility that is around.
All right, we are going to finish here. Thank you guys very much. Peter,
thank you.
Vilius, thank you very much. Good conversation from the audience. To wrap it up, we're done for the official part today. There is opening reception here at 8 o'clock tonight, 8 till 10. Beers and wines, not dinner, but beers and wines here at 8 o'clock and some music. So come there if you like. Otherwise, we'll see you tomorrow. We got a jam-packed, very full day tomorrow, starting at 9 o'clock in the morning. Coffee's before that. Enjoy the rest of the day. Enjoy the conversations, and see you probably tonight.